The Travel Transformation Podcast is proud to be partnered with Give the Goodness Global, an amazing global outreach project helping families in need all over Southeast Asia and beyond. Please check them out at Instagram.com/Give the Goodness Global today. And now on to the podcast episode.
Welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast, where we talk all things travel and all things transformation, exploring the life-changing potential of solo travel, intentional travel, and location-independent working. Whether you're an aspiring digital nomad or simply wish to boost your confidence through epic travel experiences, I'm here to motivate and inspire you to go after all your wildest dreams. I'm Jessica Grace Coleman, author, certified travel coach, founder of the Travel Transformation Company, and your host for the Travel Transformation Podcast. Travel changed my life. Now let's change yours. You ready? Let's go. Hello and welcome to the Travel Transformation Podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Grace Coleman, or Jess. Today is going to be a quick solo episode called What to Do When Traveling Goes Wrong, Lost Luggage, Delayed Flights, and Naked Burglars. So that gives you some hint as to what's coming. I was just thinking about this the other day, how some people, they will not go traveling because they're worried about what could go wrong. And I get it, especially if it's solo traveling. It is quite daunting, it's overwhelming, you don't want to think about if things go wrong, but really things can go wrong wherever you are. And if you're able to deal with problems at home, you can deal with problems away from home, even if you're on your own. And yes, it might be a little more difficult if you are on your own, you don't know anyone, especially if there's a language barrier. But these days, even that isn't a huge problem with all the apps and stuff like that you can get. But it's definitely not impossible to sort out problems when you're on the road. Personally, I haven't had anything like major catastrophe go wrong, but I've had a lot of little things go wrong. And arguably the naked burglar was a big thing. I'll get to that later. And I haven't let it put me off. I still love to travel. I still love to travel on my own. And really, even if you do come across these kind of issues, once you sort them out, it can feel quite good. You know, it's satisfying. It tells you that you're capable. It shows you what you can do, even when you're on your own in a foreign country where you don't speak the language and you don't know anyone. So I'm not saying, you want things to go wrong, but if they do, it's a good exercise in building your confidence, stepping outside your comfort zone, all the stuff I usually talk about on a regular basis on this podcast. So I made a little list of things that have happened to me and people I know, my friends, while traveling. And I'm going to go through them and give you a little anecdote about each of them. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk about what we can do to help ourselves prepare for things like this and what we can do when things like this happen. So lost luggage is a big one that people worry about. And I also worry about this, I'm not going to lie. I cannot travel light, so I always have my sort of cabin bag, like a backpack or something. And I always have a giant suitcase, not just a normal suitcase, not a medium-sized suitcase, a giant one. Especially if I'm going away for like 2 or 3 months. And if there's different climates involved, I'm always cold, so I need like big hoodies and big slippers and all that kind of stuff. So layers, so that takes up, a lot of room. And there's also, toiletries, all your usual stuff that you take around, plus all my work stuff, because I'm always working when I'm away. So I do worry about airlines and stuff losing my luggage. And there are things you can do about this, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, so I've had a couple of instances about this. An airline has never actually lost my luggage, touch wood for all of this stuff. And so that hasn't been a problem. But I have had an issue. I can't even remember where I went with my friend. I think we might have gone to Ireland for a few days and came back, and we were sharing a suitcase. So this was back when I didn't lug my giant suitcase around. I think we like I said, it was like a long weekend or something. So we shared a suitcase to save money because it was like an EasyJet flight or a Ryanair or something. And you have to pay. Obviously, you don't get anything included luggage-wise. And because I think most of the people had been going for a weekend on the plane we were on, it was like a Sunday night or something, getting back, most people had just had like carry-on luggage, like a bag. So like I pretty much think no one else on the plane needed to pick up a suitcase. Well, that's what it felt like. And I wasn't really paying attention. It was quite late. I was tired. We got off the plane, got off on the little bus thing, trundled away to the airport, the main airport building, got out, walked down this corridor. And you know when you see something but it doesn't really register? I sort of saw this tiny mini conveyor belt coming out the wall. And I thought, oh, that's cute. But I just assumed that we were sort of, walking towards the big baggage claim area that you usually go to, which I'd been to even on like small flights to Ireland and stuff before. So I didn't really think anything of it. Walked straight past the conveyor belt, followed the crowd because no one else stopped. If they had, I might have gone, maybe I should stop too. And then we followed all the stuff out, and then we found ourselves in the main airport, and we were like, I think something's gone wrong here. And yeah, we'd walked straight past the baggage claim thing, this cute little conveyor belt, and we had to wait, I think it was like 3 hours or something for someone to track down the case and bring it to us. And I can't remember if it was like a family member or a taxi driver was waiting for us. I think we ordered one of those like airport transfers, was waiting for us this whole time. And we were like, I'm so sorry. We just totally walked past the baggage thing and they weren't impressed. So that was annoying. So always be aware of where you actually need to get your case from. And yeah, so following the crowd doesn't always work if they haven't actually checked in any luggage. So that's something to be aware of. The other issue I've had with luggage, it wasn't actually mine, it was my friend Sophie's. I was on my year abroad in the University of Colorado in Boulder. Amazing place. And 4 of us, me, Sophie, Katie and Laura, went on a long weekend to Vegas. We had turned 21. Unfortunately, our friend Vicky was still 19 and she didn't want a fake ID or anything, so she didn't come. But we got on a bus, I think it's called the Sky Ride or something, to Denver Airport from Boulder. And I've always sort of thought this about coaches, the ones with like the doors on the side that you lift up and then you put your bag in and then like the driver closes it usually. And I'm always like, what if the driver doesn't close it properly? Or what if it's, a bag gets stuck and it doesn't close properly and no one notices and then it's just going to open when we're driving? And I sort of mentioned this to a few people over the years and they've been like, that would never happen. That's ridiculous. Why are you worrying about this stuff? Which is fair enough. But yeah, on the way to Denver, on the highway, or I think it was just before we got on the freeway, maybe, like a junction, heading towards it. I don't know. But I was looking out the window and I was sort of not really paying attention. And I sort of saw 2 suitcases rolling past on the road at high speed. And I was like, that's a bit weird. When your brain takes a few seconds to catch up. And then I was like, oh no, that's going off our coach. And the door had opened, as had been one of my fears. And suitcases were slowly making their bid for freedom out on the freeway. I think I've talked about this before briefly on the podcast. And they did look like they were bidding freedom. They were sort of like going along like, wee, finally free. And I was like, oh my God. And then I pointed this out to some of the people who were sitting next to me, my friends. And then we were right at the back of the bus, right in the back of the bus, like rebels. And we were like yelling at the driver and like so had to get out of our seats and like go down to the front and tell him. And he was like, what? And he was like, I can't turn around here. So we had to keep driving for quite a while until he could turn around and then come back the other way. And the suitcases were nowhere to be seen. We were right next to this like big embankment, and as far as we can tell, unless someone had stolen them off the road, which probably unlikely considering there were lots of very fast cars going everywhere, we think they must have gone down the embankment and we couldn't get there basically from the road. And also we couldn't stop to look for them because people had flights to catch. We stopped, we checked out the luggage. We found out that it was our friend Sophie's case. Me and my other friends, our cases were still there. There were a couple of other people who we didn't know, their cases had already also flown off the bus. I can only think that my suitcase must have been so heavy that it just couldn't make its way out. And yeah, he basically had to drop us off. I still remember at the Table Mesa bus stop on the way to Denver. I think it was in Boulder still. And the driver took everyone else to the airport, and the people whose cases were missing, we just had to like step off at the bus, and we were like, what do we do now? So we had to come up with a plan. And I felt very sorry for Sophie, because obviously when you go away, you pack all your nicest stuff in your suitcase. All her like new clothes that she'd bought for her year abroad, they were gone. Obviously she had insurance, which she claimed, and I think it took about 6 months, maybe 10 months for her to get money back to cover the cost of the suitcase, and also to cover, I think we got some money back for the cost of the trip, the bus ride to Denver. We each got a little bit for that. But yeah, I think we ended up getting a taxi because we couldn't wait for the next bus to come. And at this point, we'd already got off to check our suitcases and everything, and the other driver had already gone. So we got a taxi. Oh yeah, we got the money back for the taxi from the insurance eventually as well. And the whole way to Denver Airport, the taxi driver was like, what happened? Like, I know. But yeah, essentially we had to share out all our stuff with Sophie, like toiletries, things like that. And as soon as we got to Vegas, we went shopping. So she at least had some clothes. She could get some, like a toothbrush, whatever, like other stuff she needed that we couldn't give her of our own. And yeah, all her stuff was gone. So that is a horrible story, because I know I'm trying to convince you to go traveling. But it taught me to, every time I get on a coach now, I wait until the last person's suitcase is on there, and then I check that when the driver or whoever, the passenger, pulls the thing down, I check that it's shut. People might think I'm crazy if they see me doing this, but I don't care, just for peace of mind. And I also try to get a window seat on the side of the coach where I know my luggage is. So I just keep an eye on it. So I know that, you know, if the thing opens and I see my suitcase rolling off, I will be on the right side to see it, so we can tell the driver. So I've learned to be more aware of that, which is maybe good, but it's also a reminder to insure all your stuff when you go traveling. Like, do not skip that step. Even if you think you don't need it, even if it's for a weekend away, whatever, insure everything, because you never know what's going to happen to your luggage. So that was the lost luggage. I'm going to talk a bit later about how we could have dealt with that differently, like if we were doing it now. But for now, I mean, other things I've had: delayed flights when I went to Bangkok on my own. Sorry, when I went to Koh Samui on my own, I had to fly to Bangkok first. I was going to a writer's house on Koh Samui in Thailand. And yeah, my flight was cancelled. I went all the way to Heathrow. Had to wait 13 hours in the airport. It came up on my Facebook memories the other day. So it was 13 hours in the airport. I got the last seat on the last flight out that night to Bangkok. Then I had to leg it through Bangkok airport. I only just made it. I was a sweaty mess. I didn't know where I was going. There were like huge queues, you know, bottleneck queues that you get in airports with people with visas and stuff like that you can't like push past everyone else because, you know, they might be in the same boat. And it was an absolute nightmare. I got there, I don't know, 1 a.m. or something like that. Figured out how to get to the house, got out of the taxi, and it was this big statue of Guan Yu, the god of war. It's sort of a couple of places, couple of addresses away from the house. And I got out and it was lit up at night, and I was absolutely exhausted, and it was just like something out of a movie. I was like, ugh, giant god of war staring at me with evil eyes. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's happening. I'm really tired. So, you know, delayed flights are stressful. I get it. Running through the airport is stressful. I get it. The only thing I can say about how to prepare for that is to get your cardio in, maybe, so you're not like totally dead when you're trying to run through airports. It makes a good reason to get fit. If not for health, then for running through airport lounges. And yeah, so that was the delayed flight to Koh Samui, or to Bangkok. And that is where I had the incident with a naked burglar. Now, I'm sure I've mentioned this on the podcast a few times, but if you haven't heard, yes, I was in a writer's house. So we were doing like writing content and editing content for this woman's business in exchange for room and board. This amazing house in this quaint little fishing village on Koh Samui. Brilliant time, great housemates. I've had one of them on the podcast, Meredith San Diego. Interviewed her. And yeah, it was amazing. But I think a couple of weeks before I left, it was sort of 2 a.m. I went to the bathroom. I came back into my room. I had like my little lamp on, but everything else was in darkness. And as I sort of swung open my bedroom door, I noticed a shadow move behind it and I was like, oh my God, what the hell is that? It turned out to be this naked Thai guy. He was not sober. He was on many things, I believe, and he was totally naked. And yeah, I screamed at him. He screamed at me. I was speaking in English. He was speaking in Thai. It was like something out of a comedy sketch, but, you know, at the time it was quite terrifying. He eventually ran off, and I was the only one who saw him. So for a while I thought maybe I'd hallucinated the whole thing, but then we found some evidence that he'd been there. He stole some stuff. There's a bag scattered on the floor, all that good stuff. And that is the kind of thing you don't expect, you can't really prepare for. But also, I mean, people say like, oh, did it put you off traveling? Did it put you off staying in these kind of houses? Did it put you off solo traveling? I'm like, no, because that could happen to you wherever you are. It could happen to you at home. People get burgled all the time, unfortunately. Probably not going to be a naked guy in England, granted, because it's too cold most of the time. But, you know, all these things can go wrong at home. And I'm not saying that to freak anyone out, but if that's the reason or the excuse you're using not to go traveling, then it doesn't make any sense. I've had things go wrong in England all the time. I had a thief on a train near my hometown. He was going around stealing lots of handbags, and he pulled the emergency lever and got off the train and ran into the fields. We were literally in the middle of nowhere, so I don't know where the hell he thought he was going. But like, this stuff happens everywhere. So if you're frightened of losing stuff, frightened of getting things like stolen, frightened of being mugged, obviously it's not a pleasant thing, but it can happen anywhere. So it's not a reason you shouldn't go traveling. Touch wood again, I've never lost my passport or had anything stolen, I don't think. But I've been traveling with plenty of people who have. I went on a Gap Adventures, or I think it's called G Adventures now, tour of Southeast Asia. And one of these poor girls who was with us, I think she was about 18, she had a bag stolen, she had money stolen, she had a camera stolen, I think a phone stolen. I think it was in Vietnam. Yeah, Vietnam. And I don't know if it happens now, but our guide told us that if, like, not to wear any shoulder bags, because people go by on scooters and like use a knife to like cut the bag off you, like hopefully not cutting you, but cut the bag off you and then just grab your bag and then, you know, run off. No, scoot off. Or maybe they're on foot. I can't remember what happened to this girl who was in our group, but she was literally, we were outside our hotel. I think we just got off a tuk-tuk or something. She was like 3 feet away from the hotel doors. And, you know, it wasn't a super fancy hotel, but it wasn't like we weren't in the middle of nowhere in like a rundown motel or anything. It's quite a nice place. And yeah, this guy went past her, like just grabbed a bag off her and just ran off. Or on a scooter, I can't remember. But stuff like that does happen, unfortunately. But again, it could happen anywhere. It could happen when you go to a big city in your home country. So no reason not to do it. And again, I'll talk about how we can deal with this in a bit. I've also been travelling with people whose passports have run out. So this is something to be aware of. Not just the date of the passport, but how many pages you have as well. If you travel a lot, even if you think you have space left on your passport in some of the pages, some people will not like go back and use old pages and stamp them. Some people will want a fresh page to stamp, sorry. And so you might think you've got space left in your passport, but you haven't. And then you get stuck in a country, which is exactly what happened to one of the women I was hanging out with in South Africa for a bit. She travels all the time, like 12 months a year, for years. And she'd run out of pages on her passport and she'd sent it off to the embassy and they were taking a long time to get back to her. And her visa was running out, so she had to leave the country, but she couldn't because she didn't have the passport. And, you know, if that was me, I would be so stressed, freaking out. She was not fazed by it. I think because she's been traveling for so long, she's had to deal with this stuff all the time. And the more you deal with it, the less scary it seems. But also she was just a super chill person anyway, unlike me, which probably helps. But it just goes to show you don't have to immediately panic. There are people out there who can help you. You always have options, even if they're not the best options. But it's usually not the end of the world if something like this happens. And again, I'll mention some things you can do to prepare for this kind of stuff in a bit. Getting lost is a big one. People worry about getting lost, especially when they're on their own. But these days, if you've got a smartphone, if you have access to the internet, and that's one thing to make sure you have, that you can use your own data, basically when you're abroad. I'm with O2, and I think anywhere in Europe, I can use my same data that I use in the UK, which is good. When I was in South Africa, if I wanted to use my data, you could decide like each day whether to use it or not. And I think it was like £5 a day. So it adds up if you're there for a couple of months, but it's good in an emergency. But if you do have that, then you can go on Google Maps, like loads of other Apple Maps, whatever you want to use, navigate using that. So unless you're completely in the middle of nowhere and have no data or whatever, there's usually, some kind of app or technology that can help you.
Since the start of the pandemic, many people have been reconsidering the ways in which they have fun. After a horribly isolating couple of years, we're now craving connection, community, and real deep conversation. We don't want to do the same old stuff every time we meet up with friends. We want something new, something different, something more. Enter the Flip the Script Party Packs. These digital party packs will help you flip the script on your usual parties and flip the script on your lives. Yes, this is self-development, but not as you know it. When you buy a Flip the Script party pack, you'll get taken to a super secret page on our online portal where you'll be guided through your very own Flip the Script party with videos, fun worksheets, and printables to help you throw the best Flip the Script party ever. There's a party pack for everyone and every situation. Mindset makeover, business bestie, life goals and legacy, birthday boost, hen do hootenanny, and team building takeover, all designed to help you have a great time in a fun, collaborative setting. They're also perfect for when you're meeting people on the road and you want to get to know your new travel buddies. Small talk's dead. It's time to get deep with a Flip the Script party. Just head to traveltransformationcoach.com/party to purchase, or get all 6 party packs free when you sign up to the Flip the Script Digital Nomad Academy at traveltransformationcoach.com/academy. And now let's get back to the Travel Transformation Podcast.
SatNavs are a thing as well. So years and years ago, before people just used their phones for SatNavs, I went road tripping around New Zealand with my friend Ruth, and we got a SatNav from the car rental place. It was sort of came with SatNav, but we didn't notice the cable wasn't working, like the charger. And we drove away from the rental place about 3 hours. We were in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by fields and sheep, and then the SatNav died. And I think we've been waiting for it to go down before charging it or something. I don't know. We just didn't realize. And we were like, what do we do now? And we're like, well, what did people do before SatNavs? Maps, yes. So we didn't have maps, but we did keep driving until we found a McDonald's McCafe, which we lived in when we were in New Zealand because they had internet. And we basically went and looked at Google Maps and we got the directions to each next place before we left McDonald's. And we did it that way. I don't think we actually bought an actual map. I think we did towards the end, actually, because I remember throwing the map away when we were about to drive to the airport because we were on the motorway or the highway, whatever they call it, freeway, I don't know, in New Zealand. And there were signs to the airport everywhere. So I was like, oh, we don't need the map now. And Ruth was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, we'll just get rid of all this clutter before we take it back to the car rental place. So I shoved all the maps in the bin and outside McDonald's, got in the car, immediately went the wrong way, got lost, and it took us a good extra hour to get to the airport and just made it in time to hand in our car and get our flight. So yeah, never took away the maps prematurely. But actually that made the trip a lot more fun because we had to think about things. We actually ended up driving through lots of cute little towns that we wouldn't have gone through during our McDonald's McCafe internet search. And yeah, just going old school and just wandering around, not really knowing where we were going. It just made it a lot more fun, actually. So, that wasn't too bad. But I've also had this in the States. Again, we didn't have any plans on our smartphones back then. I think we did have smartphones, but we didn't have any internet. And so we had told the car rental place that we needed a SatNav, and they had said yes. Before we got there, they were like, yes, we can give you that. We got there and they're like, oh no, we don't do SatNavs. No one uses SatNavs anymore. And we were like, we need to. So we asked directions to the nearest Target. We love Target. We just love going there, shopping. And they were like, well, we can get a SatNav from Target. So all we had to do was use the Google instructions to get to Target. We were like, can't be too hard, right? And this was just outside Boston in a place called Somerville. And oh my gosh, I don't know what happened. We just got so lost, and we ended up I think it took us like 2 hours to find Target, and it was only like a 10-minute drive from the car rental place. We eventually got there and then got our SatNav. But the story doesn't end there, because the SatNav we got, I'm blaming the technology here, blaming my tools, but the SatNav, it went bizarre. I swear, it wasn't me. I was driving, but it wasn't me. Towards the end of the trip, it did seem to like start behaving itself, but to start with, we had to get from like one point, Somerville, I can't remember where we were driving, somewhere else in New England, somewhere else in Massachusetts, to our next stop. And I didn't want to drive through Boston because it's a busy city. I don't like driving through cities in the States. I've driven through Denver and got very lost as well. That was, I think they have a lot of one-way roads there, and I was trying to get to a hotel and it's just like, where is it? Anyway, so I was like, let's pick up the car from Somerville, not Boston, then we don't have to drive through Boston. We can just go to our next thing, which was like on the other side, the same side as we were from Boston. Great. So what happened? I drove straight into Boston. I followed the SatNav. It took us into the city and out of the city, even though it was totally the wrong direction. And we realised we were going in the wrong direction after waiting in traffic in Boston for like 2 hours because there was a big game on. Oh my gosh. We realised in the wrong direction. So we had to turn around and drive back through Boston and out the other side. And oh my gosh, I was stressing out. I love driving. I love driving in America with the long roads and the big cars, but not in cities, not when you don't know where you're going, not when it's like super busy. And it was just a nightmare. So yeah, study maps beforehand. Have a SatNav and your phone maybe. Have both. Why not? And yeah, don't just blindly trust the SatNav. Like figure out which direction you need to be going, all that good stuff. But it's not just when you're driving, it's like buses and things as well. So be aware of how long it takes you to get through a city. So me and my friends got to New York. We had booked an Airbnb in Hell's Kitchen. It was basically this woman's tiny apartment, and she moves out, stays with a friend whenever someone books it. And we had to meet her at her hair salon, which was like a couple streets away from her place, so she could give us the keys. And I think the salon closed at like 5 or something. We got in at like 1 or 2 or something like that. We were like, 4 hours, 3 or 4 hours to get there. Absolutely fine on the coach. We got there. I think we got through security and all that, got our luggage quite quickly. So that wasn't the problem. It was when we got on the coach. And obviously we know New York's busy, but we had to get basically from one end to the other. Possibly. I can't even remember now. But we were on the coach and it was like 1 hour went by, 2 hours went by, 3 hours went by. And again, I don't think I had internet. This is like quite a few years ago now. So I was like texting this woman when I could, knowing it was costing me a fortune, and saying, we're late, I'm sorry, we're late. And she was like, well, the shop's going to close soon. I'm going to have to like wait around for you. It's going to be so annoying. And I was like, oh no, she's going to give us a terrible review and all that kind of stuff. We eventually got there just before she left and managed to get the key and get in. And it was a tiny, tiny place up many, many stairs. And we had giant suitcases. So it was all very hilarious. Got a photo of my friend Vicky in the apartment, and all you can see is all our giant suitcases, and then there's like no room for anything else. But I do like Hell's Kitchen as an area. But yeah, so just keep in mind that things like that, getting coaches through big cities, is always probably going to take longer than you think. Also keep in mind what country you're in when you book tours and things, because I was in Beijing in China. Me and my friend Ruth booked a sort of bus tour to the Great Wall, which was amazing. Obviously, can't really say a bad thing about the Great Wall, although getting pestered by all the people trying to sell you stuff is kind of annoying. But again, it's just what happens when you go traveling. But we got in I think it was a minivan, and it was like a 3-hour drive each way to the Great Wall from Beijing. I'm not sure. You can check that on Google. It was quite a way though. And Ruth, my friend, is very petite, quite short. She was fine. She was sort of a similar size to all the other people on our tour who were all Chinese. Me, I'm not even like super tall, but I was, quite a bit taller, quite a bit bigger. And I literally had to sit in the seat with like my legs, my knees up, like near my shoulders. for like the whole time there and back. It was quite funny. But just things to bear in mind if you are in a different country, if you're a different size and shape to most of the people there, and you book on a very, very long tour, then things like that can happen. And I also remember on the way back, we got stuck in lots of traffic and it took us forever to get back. And I was just like dying in this strange position. And yeah, not great, but something to keep in mind. But when I was talking about getting lost before, again, this is something that can happen anywhere. You're less likely to get lost in your hometown, sure. But I just want to tell you the story of me and my friend Ruth again. While we were preparing for our backpacking trip, which included China, and included the Southeast Asia G-Adventures tour I mentioned earlier to Vietnam and everywhere else, we were going with backpacks, not suitcases. So we wanted to sort of get used to walking around with a heavy backpack. So we went to the Chase, Cannock Chase, near us. Beautiful area of outstanding national beauty. Forest, lovely. Been there many, 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 many times. Somehow we got lost. I don't know how. We ended up going around in circles. It was getting dark. It was very Blair Witch vibes, I have to say, because we knew where we were, and we knew where we had to go, and yet we kept just not being where we thought we'd end up. And we got lost on the Chase for about 4 hours before we finally found the road. And even though it's sort of dangerous walking along the road when all the cars are going by really fast, we knew that at least we knew how to walk back to the car park that the car was in, which is, I don't know, half an hour down this road. And we don't understand what happened. It was like we'd gone through some kind of portal or something. But, if you can get lost somewhere you've been many, many, many times before, yes, you might get lost when you're away, but it could happen anywhere. So I just wanted to put that in there. And honestly, it was very Blair Witchy. And I've seen very weird things in the Chase, like structures made of trees and things like that. And apparently a few years ago, someone went into an area of the Chase and nailed a load of dolls to the tree. It was like an art installation, but it freaked everyone out so much. Anyway, so yeah, things like that can happen to you on your doorstep. So those are a few of my stories. I'm sure you have your own. But what can you do about this? The first thing, as I've said, is don't use it as an excuse not to go anywhere, because things like this can happen anywhere. The other main thing you can do is just be prepared. Research where you're going, and be prepared with all your documents. So, you've got your passport, obviously. You have any tickets, any visas, any instructions, any bookings for cars, taxis, trains, whatever, all that stuff. I make sure I have all that with me. I also take pictures of everything and have that on my phone and make sure that is uploaded to the cloud as well. And I also take copies of all my major documents with me. So I've got spares. Maybe I'll put some in my case, some in my hand luggage. So yeah, just make sure you're prepared in that regard. And also load your phone with any kind of app you think you might need. Translation apps, map apps, Find My Phone, all kinds of things. Obviously, you'll probably have social media on there and stuff, so you can contact people if you need to. WhatsApp is great to keep in contact with people while you're abroad. Just, make sure you've got everything you could possibly need. And like I said before, make sure you know about your internet, your data allowance. Go onto your phone provider and see what the rules are for this particular place you're going to. Like I say, I'm with O2 and they're really good in Europe. Other places you might have to pay per day. Now, one thing you can do, I know some places don't like this, but use air tags in your luggage. So they're like little circular metal looking tag things. Apple make them, but I'm sure there's other sort of ones you can get. Put them in your suitcase. So if it goes missing, you can track it down. It's like GPS, and this would have come in really handy on the way to Denver, on the way to Vegas for the cases rolling down the embankment. We would have been able to see where they were if someone had taken them or if they were just lying in a ditch somewhere. We still might not have had time to go and get them without missing our flight. And we didn't want to miss our flight because we were only going for a weekend. But this could come in really handy. Put it in your hand luggage as well. Put it in whatever you want. And that could be something to look into. So this is all kind of insurance. Make sure you get actual insurance, obviously. Another kind of insurance, give your itinerary to other people so they know where you are. where you're staying, what you're planning on doing, all that good stuff. Another good thing to do is if you're going abroad, find out the emergency services number. So the equivalent of 999 or 911 or wherever you're listening to this from, whatever yours is, and put it in your phone ready. Also, find out where the nearest embassy is for your country in case you need their help. Hopefully you won't need it, but just knowing where it is can be really helpful and stop you panicking. And that's another thing. Just don't panic. There's always someone who can help you. Like, people in general are nice and helpful, and there's always something you can do. So don't panic. Find someone you can talk to the embassy, ask on Facebook, or social media, Instagram back home if anyone knows who you can contact to get help about this. Go on the gov.uk website. They'll probably have lots of tips and numbers and stuff like that. Just breathe. Don't panic. Remember, you're in control. You got this. You can sort stuff out at home so you can sort stuff out abroad. And I mentioned social media. Facebook groups are great. Travel groups. Go on, ask about tips for a certain area or a certain country you're going to. Get tips and information from people who've been there recently. And recently is the key word because they might have been 20 years ago. It's a completely different country by now. So get tips, ask if other people are going, all the good stuff. If you're worried about security, take your own locks with you. Put on your bedroom door if you're in an Airbnb or something. Or do the trick where you put a chair under the handle. I usually put my giant suitcase next to the door. So, if someone tries to break in, the door or under the handle trick might stop them. If it doesn't, or if you've just got your case there, maybe they'll knock it over. Maybe you'll hear it and wake up. Maybe that'd be enough for them to skedaddle. Just things like that to keep in mind. And yeah, if you take checked-in baggage and carry-on baggage, make sure to keep all your important documents with you in your carry-on. And if you have room, keep a change of clothes, some underwear, enough money to keep you going, anything you need for the next few days if something were to happen to your luggage. Obviously, you can buy things if you need them, toiletries and so on, but anything else, especially if you're getting somewhere late at night, nothing's open, you might want to make sure you've got your toothpaste with you, contact lens solution if you use it, glasses, all that good stuff that you need. And yeah, I think that's all I've got to say. Obviously, there are a lot worse things that can happen when you travel. And I'm not saying that, there aren't scary things out there, but like I say, there are scary things other places too, even in your hometown, and that doesn't stop you from going out, hopefully. So it shouldn't stop you from going traveling. And if you have any funny stories or anecdotes from traveling, I'd love to hear them. You can email me at info@traveltransformationcoach.com. You can DM me on Instagram at Travel Transformation Coach. You can join my Facebook group, the Travel Transformation Lounge. Tell everyone on there. And yeah, if you have any tips on how to deal with this kind of stuff, how to prepare yourself, any of that good stuff, just let me know. So that's it for this quickie, which turned into not so much of a quickie as usual. And until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Transformation Podcast with me, Jessica Grace Coleman. If you enjoyed this episode, I would really appreciate it if you could please subscribe, rate and review, and spread the word, because it's my mission to help as many people as possible to flip the script on their lives and transform through travel. And remember, life is short, so let's make sure it's nothing short of amazing. Until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.